Welcome, everybody, to the newest episode of Amateur Theory. We have an interesting selection today because it was kind of a last-minute selection. We were actually going to do a different movie, but I found an article talking about the new streaming service from Mint Mobile called Mint Mobile Plus. And if you haven't gone to and looked at Mint Mobile Plus, you should, because it's free. Just go to mintmobileplus.com. And it is a completely free streaming service, which is done by the acclaimed Ryan Reynolds. It's his own personal streaming service. Very well done. Got top 10, in the country, different, selections of movies. But the twist is that every single selection is the same selection. It's Foolproof, the Canadian movie, which I'd never heard of before.
I don't think anyone had heard of the movie before this streaming service.
I guess I don't know if it was Ryan Reynolds' first movie, but it was certainly before he was big. This is I don't remember the exact year, but early 2000s.
It's 2003. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, no one's seen this, or no one had seen this movie before. Like on Rotten Tomatoes, there's not even a critic score. There's just an audience score, but there's no critical consensus on this film.
Yeah, when I was reading about this movie afterwards, it was almost like nothing to read. It was just not a lot.
There's just no information.
Yeah, and did you watch it? I'm assuming you watched it on Mint Mobile Plus, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so the only option is 480p. I'm pretty sure. It's not
it's in glorious standard definition. No,
yes.
No 1080p here.
But immediately when I saw the streaming service, I thought it was pretty funny. Like it's actually a pretty well-made website. Gag. Yeah. I actually think that the gag is funnier than the movie ended up being, if I'm being totally honest. But it was I appreciated it for what it is. I don't know if it's going to be a permanent fixture. My assumption is it's not. I don't think this is there's no actual Mint Mobile streaming service that this is in promotion for. Mint Mobile is just a phone service, kind of like a Verizon, but cheaper and worse. So it's just I guess promotion, just kind of a commercial thing, not any sign of what's to come. I don't think that Mint Mobile Plus has any real future. I don't think I'll ever get any additions besides Foolproof.
Yeah, and I don't know what the decision was to make Foolproof his choice here. I'm guessing that's just the gag. Did he just throw a dart at a list of his movies and just pick one?
Yeah, who knows? Something where it wouldn't matter if you offered it for free. It's just whatever. Yeah, but I'm glad it exists. I got a chuckle out of it at the very least, and I watched a movie I never would have otherwise. So
yeah.
There's that.
And the movie, actually, I don't think was that bad. It was not a waste of time.
I have mixed feelings about it. Around the 1 hour mark, I was really ready for it to be over. I was totally over this movie. But then I thought they brought it back at the ending. I actually did like the ending. So, that's they had me with the premise at the beginning. I was interested, and they kind of dragged on, lost interest, and then they pulled me in at the end, and I was like, okay, I guess okay is how I would describe it. It's a big okay movie, is how I.
I mean, it's a fun enough movie. I was on a bike machine exercise thingy. I don't know what you call those, if there's an official term, the whole time, and the movie engaged me enough that I was not thinking about how much exercising sucks, which is what usually happens when I'm on too long on one of those things.
Did you do it the whole movie? The 90 minutes? Man, good for you.
Yeah, I don't think I've my life around.
But yeah, no, it has its moments. Ryan Reynolds, while not as charming as he will be in later movies, you could see glimpses of it there, glimpses of the future star that we'd get. He has his moments. All of the characters, the main characters are fairly likable. The villain I thought actually was pretty boring. It was like find the most generic. Maybe the fact that he was such a generic villain, I think, was maybe part of the gag. Like I think they were playing on how generic he was a little bit.
Oh, really? I thought they just wrote a generic character.
Oh yeah, maybe I'm overthinking it. There was one part when the guy was like, "He's in the mafia." He's like, "He's actually not part of the mafia." And the guy was like, "Oh." And I thought, I don't know if I was making a gag about that or it was just a line in the movie. Because he easily could have been, like, who cares? Like, I don't know. And then they were like, they made like a thing where the guy was like, Al Capone said this. And the guy was like, I actually think it was Killinger. And then.
Oh, yeah. And the guy, like, just looks over, like, at him and gives him a look.
Right. And so I read that as a subtext of, like, none of this matters. The villain is just, nameless villain, enter here. But maybe I'm really reading into it. That was not intentional. I just reading too deep into this.
Oh, I just thought it was like a subpart joke or something.
It probably was. I probably was reading too much into this. But okay.
Let's get into the premise of the film.
Yeah. Because that actually was interesting.
Yeah, actually somewhat. So we have 3 friends, Ryan Reynolds and 2 other people.
And the other 2. Yeah.
The other 2, the other guy and the girl. And what they do is they get together and essentially play a sort of heist game. Like they'll figure out the security of, like, say, a building, and then they'll sort of recreate exercises together that would simulate basically what they would have to do if they wanted to rob the place.
Yeah.
But for them, it's just fun. It's just like kind of like an exercise. They just enjoy the challenge of trying to figure out how to do a heist and then, like, go through the motions in their basement or, like, garage space or whatever. They have a space somewhere where they can play these games. And they're trying to always foolproof their plans.
Yeah, they said the name of the movie like 80 times in this movie. Which I thought was kind of fun. I don't begrudge them for doing that. But yeah, at the beginning, you get like a side-by-side of them talking about the plan, and then it seems like they're doing the plan, but it's actually just an imagined scenario. Right.
Yeah.
But
the movie actually shows you that they're not interested in committing actual robbery. It actually explicitly shows that because, basically what happens is one of their plans gets stolen.
So that's where the twist comes in, the drama.
Yeah, and they actually try to make an anonymous call to the, I guess, jewelers or whoever that the plans are for to rob, and try to warn them even that, someone stole these plans, you might get robbed. And lo and behold, guess what? It does get robbed. Oh my. Who saw that happening?
And so it turns out that their foolproof plan, which they made for fun, actually worked. In practice, a criminal stole their plans and enacted it and stole a bunch of diamonds. And this criminal was then able to figure out, the 3 of their identities and then blackmail them, essentially, and say, if you don't do another heist for me, since you've been proven to be such good plan makers, that I will basically tell the police that the robbery I just committed was you, and the proof would be the fact that your fingerprints are on the written plans and how to do it. And so, essentially, the movie is these people who did these heist plans for fun now have to do a real heist. And so you have basically the rest of the movie is them enacting this heist that they do. It's got multiple.
I mean, it plays out like a kind of like a normal heist movie. There's the planning stage, the actual execution part, which you see, and then the aftermath.
Right.
And the twists and turns along the way.
Right. But then the twist ending, the thing that I think really kind of, if they hadn't had this twist ending, if it had just ended with them, I think this would have been it brought it up, even though this was kind of predictable how it ended. But it still was satisfying. And spoiler alert, I'll say now for this movie, Foolproof if you care. Spoilers for Foolproof. But at the end, it turns out that they used a foolproof plan to actually swindle the person blackmailing them. So instead of using their foolproof genius plan to steal the thing like the gangster guy wanted, they actually used it against him to get him locked up, essentially, and clear their names. And it seemed like there was a moment when one of the members seemed like they were going to betray the other two.
The one guy that's not Ryan Reynolds, the other guy.
Right. So he kind of gets buddy a little bit with the main mobster, the not a mobster. And so you think that maybe he betrayed them, but it turns out that was all just part of the big plan to fool the mobster and, kind of get his comeuppance at the end. So yeah, it was fairly charming. Unlike another kind of action movie we saw recently, this one made sense the whole way through. There was no points where you didn't understand what was going on. It wasn't confusing. It was a straightforward plot, and so yeah, for all those reasons, I give it props.
Yeah, no, I'd say a fairly solid action thriller. I mean, it's not going to blow your mind or anything, but you could certainly do worse. It's one of those. Well, I don't think anyone saw this when it came out, but when it did come out, it was one of those things like, let's say like you're on your first date, or maybe even you just newlyweds and like you're sick of playing board games all weekend. Maybe like you like going out to the movies occasionally, so you just go to the movie. You have no idea what's showing because you don't read like the critics in the newspapers or anything. So you go to the movie theater and you see this movie. Oh, what's this movie? Foolproof. Oh, heist movie. Yeah, let's check that out, honey. And so you buy your popcorn, you go to the movie and you watch it, and you have a pretty solid fun time. You leave the theater and you're like, huh, that wasn't bad. Your spouse is like, yeah, it wasn't bad. Yeah. And then you go home and you never think about it ever again.
Okay, that might be all and well for the newly wedded couple, but for someone who is more of a movie file, like we are, did you not find this a little kind of painfully generic at times? First of all, so this is a it is an action comedy, so it has action elements, but it's also a comedy. It's supposed to be funny. I didn't laugh one time. Like there was some parts where I thought that it was kind of amusing, but nothing that was, and even times when I felt like they were going for laughs, and they fell flat. Like some jokes just totally didn't land at all.
Yeah, no, they fall flat. But even though they fall flat, they weren't like cringy. I don't think too much, or I don't even remember most of the jokes. They're just forgettable. Like, yeah. But I don't remember them making me like cringe though, going like, oh no, that never happened. I don't think. I mean, I like.
So you weren't bored the entire way. Like you felt you were engaged the whole time.
Yeah, fairly engaged. No, I mean, I think it moves at a pretty decent, actually pretty fast pace. Like, if you're at one scene and you're bored, like it'll end soon enough and just move on to the next thing. I think I do like Ryan Reynolds. He's pretty charismatic, and I still think he's got his charm in this film, even though it was before he was big or anything. Like, I still enjoyed watching him.
I liked it when he was, more what I expect from Ryan Reynolds, when he's kind of being cheeky and, kind of overly confident. That's kind of like his thing, and he does it well. But there's a lot of parts in this movie where he is whiny and he gets like a really emotional, and I think he does not do that part well. So, and that was kind of around that time when I was saying that I was sick of the movie, was when that was happening the most. It was a lot of him whining, a lot of him, kind of being a bit of a stick in the mud, which, I mean, you're supposed to root for him because he's being the moral person, but it didn't come off as particularly righteous. Just kind of, I felt it would leave a little obnoxious at times, where I didn't want him on screen. I was just like, okay. Get to the next scene. Like, I don't need to hear this again, the 8th time about how this is wrong. And it's like, yeah, we all know, like, we got it. You know, how many times do you need to say that? That was just my things, I guess.
I don't think that ever bothered me, or I didn't notice him like whining that much. But
you know the scenes I'm talking about, though, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I certainly remember him like being the like, I guess almost even straight person at some parts, like just like trying to like, you know, like other people be fighting and they'll be like, hey, get your shit together, we've got to do this job or something. But
no, but like I think a really good example of this was the first scene they introduced the gun. Right, so they're the gun and they're kind of handling the gun, and then the one
guy girl takes the gun.
Right, yeah, but like before that happens, Ryan Reynolds comes in and he freaks out. He's like,
oh yeah,
there's no guns in my plan. There's no guns, and he starts like banging things around and getting really upset. And I mean, it's kind of funny to talk about now.
I thought that was funny. Actually, no, I enjoyed watching him like kick over a chair with coffee on it, go like, "No guns."
I don't think that was intentionally comedic, though. If you found comedy in it, it wasn't because it was trying to be funny. It was just because it's, I don't know, because it was kind of lame. Like, you got to tell me what was funny about it, but I didn't find those things particularly amusing. And then, from a dramatic standpoint, I didn't find them particularly interesting.
Oh no, that scene was awkward. So the whole thing, like just like the girl taking the gun and pointing it at the guy, and I'm like, well, it's like 20 minutes into the film, we know she's not gonna shoot him.
Yeah. What did you think of the non-Ryan Reynolds characters? Like, did you like them? So there was the girl who was like very much, you know, like one of the guys, tomboy, kind of to the extreme, to the point where it was insinuated that she was the tough one, right? There was and I think they did it for comedic effect. That was one of the things I just didn't find particularly funny. Like, haha, the girl's tougher than the guy. And like, okay, like, sure. I mean, I don't care about that that doesn't make me not like her as a character, but the fact that that was constantly being used to drive the comedy over and over. I felt like that was like one of the biggest jokes of the movie was, this woman acts like a man, ha ha ha. And like, I just thought that was really flat, and they did that over and over and over. It seemed like the whole point of her character was to be a joke, and it was like, okay, whatever. It was kind of boring. And then the other guy was, I actually thought he was more funny because all the slapstick humor went through him. He messes up a lot, right? He would like stand on the chair and slip and fall, but the slapstick humor, you know, was mildly amusing, but again, wasn't laugh out loud kind of stuff to me either.
No, to me, I think I just stopped paying attention to the film as like a comedy. Like after like 20 or so minutes, like there'd be a joke and I think I'd just kind of like ignore it. I'd like recognize that they were trying to be funny, but I wasn't like really engaging with it on that level.
See, because that's the thing. Like I was the same in that I would recognize the jokes and be like, oh, but to me that's like a detriment. Like, I shouldn't be doing that. If your jokes aren't landing, stop making jokes.
No, and I would usually agree with you, but I don't know. This is the thing. Like, I can't even remember the humor in the movie, and I watched it last night. Like that, that's just not what stuck with me. I guess like I said, I had a fun time watching it, but I'm not like ever gonna think about it again after this conversation. And the jokes,
what were the qualities that you liked the most about the movie? If so, the comedy wasn't it, right? What was the?
I think the three characters, while individually, I don't know if they're that interesting. I think together they had a somewhat of a chemistry. Like, they were kind of fun to see together. And I don't know. I actually enjoyed like.
I don't disagree with that. Sorry, I didn't.
Oh, no worries. No, I actually like kind of the heist thing where they're like talking about planning it and the execution, like watching them like try to pull it off, you know, like in every heist movie, you know, that's just the formula. But I think it's a fairly fun formula. And I think the pacing really helped. This movie is like an hour and like 30 minutes. It's
Yeah,
it's a 90-minute movie. And I think, like I said before, the movie just really moves at a pretty fast pace. Like there's like really nothing superfluous in this film. Like they cut out anything that, doesn't really need to be there. So I was engaged enough in just the actiony or the drama of trying to do the heist or whatever. I don't know, maybe I'm easily amused, but for what it was, I liked it. And I mean, this is the thing. This is a movie where there's not that much to it. Like, I can just say, like, oh, like, how they pulled off, like, this thrilling sequence or whatever. I enjoyed that, and I don't know how to expound upon it further, but because it's not like the direction was particularly noteworthy. It was serviceable. Like, it was fine for what the movie is. Like, the filmmaking aspects were all just fine. Like, it did stand out, but they weren't like terrible. Like, you weren't baffled by their decisions. Is like, to me, is the perfect, like, you watch it and you enjoy it while you're watching it movie, and then you never think about it again after you're done with it. I guess there's the score, which
it was an interesting mix. I mean, a lot of it was just kind of generic, kind of like techno-y. But then there was also some songs I recognized that I like
yeah, well, it's got a lot of funky big beat type inspired stuff. There's a lot of like
a lot. Right.
That kind of thing.
I did notice the soundtrack. That was one thing I noticed from the movie. Yeah, and actually, I was saying earlier that I think I agree with you about the chemistry. I think that is what sold the movie. Because when they started having conflict with each other, I think that's were the weaker moments of the movie. When they were like turning on each other, and then then I became less engaged. But then when I found out it was all plot for them to stay being friends, that was kind of like a little like, oh, okay, like, oh, that's nice. They're all buddies.
They beat the bad guy with the power of friendship.
Yes. So it had a sort of corny, sentimental appeal. I would say that is the strongest thing that came out of this movie for me.
It's a feel-good movie. It's the Shawshank Redemption.
No, that's why I thought the best parts were the beginning when they were just buddies coming up with the heist ideas, and like that was cool. And then the end when it turns out they were buddies coming up with a heist to fool the bad guy. And then there was this other part in the middle, which, as we mentioned, is forgettable in my opinion. I didn't think, as far as like the action sequence, I didn't feel a sense of real tension at all until the very end with the elevator scene. That they actually did, I think, particularly well. That was actually pretty tense. I felt like there was some stakes. Whereas all the parts where they were fooling getting past the lasers and everything, I never really felt like they were going to fail. Right? They did a lot of cliched things, like the code has 3 strikes and you're out, and the first 2 times they didn't get it. And like, are they going to get it on the 3rd time? Like, well, yeah, of course. That's. There was never a moment where I was wondering what was going to happen, or because
they kind of subvert it. Like, don't they actually like fail at one point? They like strike out with something, or close to striking out, and they have to like come back the next day.
I think that was part of the plan.
Oh wait, yeah, that was part of the plan. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it,
yeah. So the only parts where they messed up were during the practice times. Like the girl was practicing getting through the lasers and then failing in the practice, but when it came down to the clutch time, she was able to do it just fine. Right. The only drama, I guess there was some drama in that the first time Ryan Reynolds and the girl, which is also romantic interest. I thought that the romantic part was forgettable. Again, like it's not something that was like horribly bad, but you could have not included it, and the movie
was not well developed. It kind of just
happened.
Yeah, no. I mean, I guess they were very subtly hinting at it occasionally throughout the movie, and then they just make out at the end.
Yeah,
it really does feel out of nowhere.
It's I think that's very similar for a lot of, especially during this time period, just the comedy. Like the comedy film always has some girl, and then she's just like a total side character. It's like not important. And then whatever adventure the guy goes through at the end, he kind of gets the girl as a consolation prize too, where it's like, oh, that's so great. I mean, in this case, it wasn't totally like that because she's an integral part of the plot. But it felt very much like that, where it was just kind of like, and they kiss at the end too.
Yeah.
It's not really important, but it happens.
It just happens. It's not well developed. It's not teenagers from outer space.
Well, nothing can hold up to that.
Yeah.
Maybe the best romance ever written. So
my kind of romance. Exactly my kind of romance.
But yeah, I guess not to crap on this movie too much. It was put out for free, right, on Mint Mobile Plus. It was. I don't think that, that as far as this movie being used as an ad for a phone company, I think that is a good use of it, right? This is if you would use like a really good film for this purpose, it almost would have felt demeaning. But this movie was perfectly made to be used in a ad campaign 20 years after it was released. That sounds about right to me. So in that respect, check out Mint Mobile Plus. I'm definitely check the website out for sure, just to see it. It's really well done. It looks like a real streaming service. It's not as tacky looking as you might expect something like this to be. And then if you feel like watching a movie, especially if you want a movie where you can put it on in the background and not, pay attention to it kind of movie, I think this is good for that. Or if you're a huge Ryan Reynolds fan, you just want to see his early work, here it is. This is it. So in those cases, I can recommend it.
Yeah, it's. Do you want to watch not National Treasure again, but you've already seen it like 20 times? So you want to watch it again, but you want to watch something that's a little different than watch Foolproof, I guess.
All right. Well, I guess this one gets rated 2 middle thumbs. Not a thumbs up, but right here.
2 thumbs. Just 2 thumbs.
Yes. This is a 2 thumbs movie. Will the next film be a 3 thumbs? Watch out and find out next week. All right. Well, I think that's going to be it for this episode of the Amateur Theory Podcast. If you're listening to us on YouTube, please give us a like, subscribe, comment. If you have any kind of movie you'd like to hear us talk about, we would love to hear what it is. Please let us know. If you're listening to us on Google Podcasts, if you're listening to us on Spotify, please give us a follow. And we try to do this every week. And until next time, we are out.
Till next time, everybody.